Good morning, students. Let's continue with the same story that we were doing in the previous video, A Horse and Two Goats. Please open to page number 63. We just have to complete this part. Page number 63, see the second last paragraph. Then the visitor, feeling that he had spent too much time already, said, "Tell me, will you accept 100 rupees for not for the horse? I'd love to take the whiskered soldier also, but no space for him this year. I'll have to cancel my air ticket." Now underline this, you should know how he will be carrying the horse. He'll cancel his air ticket and take a boat home, I suppose. Ruth can go by air if she likes, but I will go with the horse and keep him in my cabin all the way if necessary. So he says that I'll cancel my ticket, but I'll take the horse by water. And he smiled at the picture of himself voyaging across the seas, hugging this horse. He added, I'll have to pad it with straw so that it doesn't break. Now this foreigner, he was imagining how he'll carry the horse statue. He even agrees to pay 100 rupees, right, to Muni. And then he says that I'll cancel my ticket, let my wife come by air, but I'll go by the ship, by the boat, and I'll carry the horse with me, right? I'll have to arrange some straw, keep him very safe, and then I can just take him. Lend me a hand and I can lift off the horse from its pedestal after picking out the cement at the joints. We can do anything if we have a basis of understanding. Now this is what this American said. He said, see, I just want you to help me in pulling off the horse statue, right? I'll keep it in my car and I can just take it. At this stage, the mutual mystification was complete. Now, at this stage, finally there was a little bit of understanding, and there was no need even to carry a guessing game at the meaning of words. The old man chattered away in a spirit of balancing of the credits and debits of conversational exchange. Now, this old man, he thought, right, okay, we're discussing about something important. So he thought, now his turn is over, now it's my turn to speak. And he started speaking. Now there was this kind of a balance of conversation, nothing else. No understanding actually. "Oh, Honorable One." So he's talking to the American, calling him the Honorable One. "I hope God has blessed you with numerous progeny." So he says, I hope that God has blessed you with many children. "I say this because you seem to be a good man, willing to stay beside an old man and talk to him." So he says, why I feel so that you have many children? Because the way you stay with an old man like me, you're sitting next to me, you're talking to me, while all day I have none to talk to except when somebody stops by to ask for a piece of tobacco. But I seldom have it. Tobacco is not what it used to be at one time, and I have given up chewing. I cannot afford it nowadays. Nothing the other's interest in his speech. Muni felt encouraged to ask, "How many children have you?" Muni must have asked how many children you have, right? With appropriate gestures with his hands. Maybe with the help of his hands, how many like this. Okay. Realizing that a question was being asked, the red man replied, "I said 100. So he was asking about the children, and the red man was actually talking about the horse statue and the price. So he said, "How many children you have?" The American host thought that he's asking about the money. He said 100, which encouraged Muni to go into details. Now Muni thought he's talking about his children. He couldn't understand 100, but he somewhat guessed that okay, maybe he's talking about his children. And he says, "How many of your children are boys and how many girls?" Means how many boys do you have and how many girls? Where are they? Is your daughter married? Is it difficult to find a son-in-law in your country also? Now, Muni was a typical, just a simple man. So his questions were pretty odd, but yeah, of course. He wanted to know whether it's difficult to find a son in law in their country as well. In answer to these questions, the red man dashed his hand into his pocket and brought forth his wallet in order to take immediate advantage of the bearish trend in the market. He flourished a 100 rupee currency note, and said, "Well, this is what I meant." So the American, what he did, he took his 100 rupee note and he kept it on Muni's hands. The old man now realized that some financial element was entering their talk. Now this poor old man, now he realized that, okay, there's something related to money. He peered closely at the currency note, the like of which he had never seen in his life. He knew the 5 and 10s by their color, although always in other people's hands, while his own earnings at this time was in copper and nickels. Copper and nickels means coins, okay? So his earning was in the coins, very little. And this is the first time he had ever seen a 100 rupee note in his hand. What was this man flourishing the note for? Perhaps asking for the change. Now he is a poor man. He thought maybe he's asking for a change. He laughed to himself at the notion of anyone coming to him for changing a 1,000 or 10,000 rupee note. He said with a grin, right? Ask a village headman, who is also a money lender. He can change even a lakh of rupees in gold sovereigns, and if you prefer it that way, he thinks nobody knows, but dig the floor of his puja room and your head will reel at the sight of the hole. So he says here, if you want the change, you can do one thing. Go to the headman of the village. He has got enough money. He can change all your money into gold, souvenirs, or even in the gold coins, whatever you want. And he thinks that nobody knows about his gold, but we all know that if we dig his puja room, there's a lot and lot of money buried there. Okay. The man disguised himself in rags just to mislead the public. So the headman of the village, he wears rags only to misguide the people. Talk to the headman yourself, because he goes mad at the sight of me. Someone took away his pumpkins with a creeper, and he, for some reason, thinks it was me and my goats. That's why I never let my goats be seen anywhere near the farms. So he says, and that's the reason why I never go near his place. His eyes traveled to his goats nosing about, attempting to wrest nutrition from minute greenery peeping out of the rock and dry earth. Now he must have told, while he was talking to the foreigner, he said, I just don't go there because of my goats. Somebody took the pumpkin and the creeper away, and somehow this headman of the village, he thinks that I or my goats are the ones to blame. The foreigner followed his look and decided that it would be a sound policy to show an interest in the old man's pets. So the foreigner, he thought, oh, maybe I should, just pat the goats, or I should just touch them. I should show as if I have interest in your goats as well. He went up casually to them and stroked their backs with every show of courteous attention. Now the truth dawned on the old man. Now the way he was touching the goats, this old man thought that maybe he is willing to buy my goats. His dream. Now underline it. You should know what was this old man's dream. His dream of a lifetime was about to realize. He understood that the red man was actually making an offer for the goats. He had reared them from here. He had reared them up in the hope of selling them someday, and with the capital, opening a small shop on this very spot. So he always wanted to sell his goats so that he can, open a shop. And what he'll do after that? Sitting here watching towards the hills, he had often dreamt how he would put up a thatched roof here, spread a gunny sack out on the ground, and display on it fried nuts, colored sweets, and green coconut for thirsty and famished wayfarers on the highway. Wayfarers, travelers, which was sometimes very busy. So he thought that once I'll sell off my goats, if I have enough money, I'll just have a small shop here with a thatch roof, and I'll be selling out the dried nuts, some sweets, and the green coconuts for the travelers. Okay, the animals were not prize won for a cattle show, but he had spent his occasional savings to provide them some fancy diet now and then, and they did not look too bad. While he was reflecting, thus the red man shook his hands and left on his palm 100 rupee in tens now. So what this man did, he took 10 notes of 10 rupees, that was 100, and he kept that on Muni's hands. So Muni thought, now he's selling his goods. Suddenly realizing that this was what the old man was asking. It is all for you, and you may share it if you have a partner. So this foreigner told the old man that you can keep the money with you, and if you have a partner, you can share it with your partner as well. The old man pointed at the station wagon and asked, are you carrying them off in that? So he said, will you be carrying these goats in your car? Yes, of course, said the other, understanding the transportation part of it. Finally, there was one correct thing, that was this one. So he understood that he is referring to my car. So he said, yes, I'll take it in there. The old man said, this will be the first ride. Okay. This will be their first ride in a motor car. Carry them off after I get out of sight. Otherwise, they will never follow you. But only me, even if I'm traveling on to the path of Yamlok. So he says here, even if, just do one thing, when I'm not here, then you can take away my goats. Otherwise, they will not follow you. They'll come behind me. He laughed at his own joke, brought his palms together in a salute, turned around and went off, and was soon out of sight beyond a clump of thicket. So this Muni, what he did, he took the money, he said, okay, thank you, and he turned around and he just walked off. The red man looked at the goats grazing peacefully, perched on the pedestal of the horse. As the western sun touched off the ancient faded colors of the statue with a fresh splendor, he ruminated. He must be gone to fetch some help. Now this American was sitting there and thought that maybe Muni has gone to get some help so that they can help and put the horse statue in the wagon. Okay. Then it says here, I suppose, and settled down to wait. So he was waiting there. When a truck came downhill, he stopped it and got help of a couple of men to detach the horse from its pedestal and place it in his station wagon. So now while he was waiting, he saw a truck coming down the hill. So he went there, stopped them, and he took their help in, removing the horse statue and keeping it in the wagon. He gave them 5 rupees each, and further payment they siphoned off gas from the truck and helped him to start his engine. They even helped him with the gas, the petroleum, and somehow his wagon started. Muni hurried homeward with the cash securely tucked away at his waist in his dhoti. So Muni kept that cash safe in his dhoti and he rushed towards his home. He shut the street door and stole up softly to his wife as she squatted before the lit oven, wondering if by a miracle food would drop from the sky. This poor woman, she was sitting right in front of that, stove, and she was waiting. She was just sitting down on the floor with hope that maybe, they'll get something to eat. Muni displayed his fortune for the day. Muni showed her the money. She snatched notes from him, counted them by the glow of the fire, and cried, 100 rupees. How did you came by it? Have you been stealing? Now she got scared. She said, how come you got so much of money? Did you steal it? I have sold our goats to a red-faced man. He was absolutely crazy to have them. Gave me all his money and carried them off in his motor car. Hardly had these words left his lips when they heard bleating outside. Now goats were outside. She opened the door and saw the two goats at her door. Here they are, she said. What's the meaning of all this? So she was quite surprised that the goats were here. So she got angry. She said, what's the meaning of all this? He muttered a great curse and seized one of the goats by its ear and shouted, where is that man? Don't you know you are his? Why did you come back? The goat only wiggled in his grip. So the goats were just, shaking it off, and, they just wanted him to leave. And, he kept questioning, why are you here? You are not mine. You are that man's goats now. Whatever. But the goats were here. Okay, the goat shook itself off. His wife glared at him and declared. Now his wife thought maybe he has stolen money. So she said, if you have thieved, if you've taken the money from somewhere, the police will come tonight and break your bones. Don't involve me. I'll go away to my parents. So she says, yeah, whatever happens, please don't involve me in all this. I'll go back to my parents' house. I hope the story is easy and clear. I hope you've understood the story. Right? It's a nice story. Finally, we have completed the stories part, and we'll be starting with the Merchant of Venice as soon as possible. I'm sure you all have your Merchant of Venice books as well. Right? We need to start with Act 2, Scene 3, I suppose. We've done till Scene 2. We have to start with Act 2, Scene 3. See if you can just open your book to page number 62. Act 2, Scene 3. This is the place. I hope you remember that Lancelot, he wanted to work for Bassanio, and somehow Shylock also agreed. He said, okay, I have no problem. I just want this servant to go. Now after that, we see Act 2, Scene 3 is the place where this person, Lancelot, comes to say goodbye to Shylock. Now he actually meets whom first? Jessica, right? I'll read it. It says here, Scene 3, Venice, a room in Shylock's house. Now before that, I'll just read the introduction part for you. In this scene, we get introduced to one of the subplots in the play, which is the love story of Jessica. Jessica is Shylock's daughter. Shylock's daughter and Lorenzo, who is a Christian, and this fact is unpalatable to Shylock and adds to his hatred of Christians. So this fact that Shylock, Jessica loves a Christian is also a reason why Shylock hates Christians. Lancelot has come to Shylock's house to take his leave and bid a tearful goodbye to Jessica, who is ashamed to be Shylock's daughter. Now, this poor servant, he has come here to say goodbye to Jessica, and Jessica feels ashamed that she is Shylock's daughter. She quickly hands him a letter to be delivered to Lorenzo, who will be a guest at Bassanio's supper. Her mind is in conflict between loyalty to her father and her love for Lorenzo. Now, her mind is actually in a conflict. She cannot decide. She's unable to decide whether she should stay with Shylock or with Lorenzo. Let's continue. Scene 3, Venice, a room in Shylock's house. Enter Jessica and Lancelot. So Shylock is not here. These two are alone, right? I'm sorry, Jessica and Lancelot. Jessica, I am sorry thou wilt leave my father so. I am sorry that you will leave my father in this manner? Our house is hell, and you are a happy devil. So she says here, our house is like a hell, I know that, and you were the happy part in it. You did rob it of some taste of tediousness. Means you did rob, you took away the taste of laziness from this house. This house is kind of a hell for me and for you. And there was no happiness in it except you. You used to make fun, you used to, joke around. So she's telling this to Lancelot. But fare thee well. Then she says, but goodbye. There is a ducat for thee. She gives him a coin. And Lancelot, soon at supper shall thou see. So she says here, and Lancelot, very soon at supper time, you shall see Lorenzo, who is your new master's guest. Who is thy means you. Who is your new master's guest. Give him this letter. Means I want you to deliver this letter. Do it secretly. Give this letter to him secretly. And so farewell. I would not have my father see me in talk with thee. So she says, okay, and now goodbye. Just go and give this letter to him, and it's a coin for you. I don't want my father to see me talking to you. Lancelot. Line number 10. Adieu means goodbye. Tears exhibit my tongue, means these tears are not letting me speak. Most beautiful pagan, most sweet Jew. So he calls this girl the most beautiful Jew. If a Christian did not play the knave and get thee, I am much deceived. So he says here, if a Christian, here means Lorenzo. If Lorenzo did not play his trick and get you, then I will be hurt. I'll feel much deceived, means I'll feel hurt. But adieu, but goodbye. These foolish drops do something drown my manly spirit. So foolish drops means these tears. They are drowning my manly spirit, because of which I am unable to speak. Adieu, goodbye. See, tears, tongue, Lancelot means inhibit my tongue. That is, tears prevent me from speaking. Mark it. Come and mark the line number 3 as well. Some part of boredom. In the context, your lively spirit took away some boredom from this house which is full of misery. Right? Come to the last speech of Jessica. This is a little bit important. Line number 15. Farewell, good Lancelot. Exit Lancelot. So finally, Lancelot has left the scene. Now Jessica is all alone. Alack. Okay, alack means alas, sorry. What heinous sin is it in me? So she says here, what kind of a deadly sin is it in me to be ashamed to be my father's child? That I feel ashamed to be my father's child, to be Shylock's daughter. But though I am a daughter to his blood, I am not to his manners. So she says here, maybe I am his daughter by blood, but I am not at all like him in his behavior. O Lorenzo, if thou keep promise, I will end this strife. So she's, just talking to herself that, oh Lorenzo, if you keep your promise, I'll end this struggle. Strife, struggle, become a Christian and thy loving wife. So what she'll do, she'll become a Christian and Lorenzo's loving wife. So that is it. We have done Act 2. We've completed A Horse and Two Goats. We have done Act 2, Scene 3. We'll start with Scene 4 in the next video. Right? That is it for today. Please revise the chapter and revise the scene again. Okay? If you have any doubts, do let me know. Thank you.